These ingredients are killing your dog. Today we're going to do a deep dive into dog food, and I'm talking about ingredients not just linked to cancer, I'll cover those, but a lot of other problems as well. Initially, when you read it, it's going to sound like, oh wow, that's really good for your dog, right? What you're actually dealing with dog food is waste products from the meat industry that they put in the dumpster, but not just from the meat industry, from many different industries. Today, we're just going to take the average dog food that most dogs consume and just kind of go through the label, starting with the first ingredient right here, ground whole grain corn, like corn on the cob, right? That's not the type of corn we're talking about. It's not sweet corn. It's a very specific type of corn called Dent corn or field corn, which is super starchy, and they feed it to cattle, but they also put it in dog food. Now, the first thing you need to know is the first ingredient is probably the majority of those ingredients. So they're putting a lot of this corn in there. And so you're getting this very low quality subsidized corn, which means the taxpayers end up paying for a good majority of it. But it's not organic corn. It's going to be GMO corn, genetically modified corn, which means it's going to have traces of glyphosate, which also has been linked to cancer. That's an herbicide. And that corn could be sitting somewhere for over a year, accumulating a very deadly aflatoxin, which has been known to cause cancer in the liver and different parts of a dog's body. But to me, what really jumps out is your dog consuming a refined corn product as probably the majority of that product. And what is that going to do to the blood sugars? I mean, think about it. They feed this to cattle. What happens to cattle when they feed all this grain? They get acidosis. Cattle has never been meant to consume that much grain, let alone dogs. So you're going to put dogs on this highly refined starch, which basically is hidden sugar. What's really interesting about that is they don't list any sugar or starch or carbs on the label. That is a loophole. When you look at any label of food, it'll come with this thing called the nutritional facts, okay? And that lists how much carbohydrate and sugar. Well, guess what? In dog food, they don't have to list it. They don't tell you how much sugar or carb that's in that product. But there is a way to find out, and I'm going to put how to find out in the description. I already did the calculations on the average bag of dog food, and this is on the low end. But the amount of carbohydrates in an average bag of dog food is literally 48%. Some sugar, but mainly starch, highly refined flour, which has the power to severely spike the blood sugar of your dog. Over 50% of your dog food is basically hidden sugar, which is going to create metabolic issues like a fatty liver, obesity, eventually type 2 diabetes, and a whole bunch of other issues. We know what happens to humans. Well, it also happens to dogs. Number 2, meat and bone meal. Sounds healthy for a dog, but what is the actual quality of the meat meal or bone meal? Well, they call it the 4 Ds, okay? Because the source of where they're getting that meat could come from dead animals, dying animals, diseased animals, or disabled animals. I'm talking about roadkill, zoo animals, even pets, like other dogs that have been euthanized. They use an injection to kill the dog for some reason, and then that ends up in the dog food. And the common drug that they use to kill these animals is called pentobarbital, and they're finding that drug in a high percentage of certain types of dog food. As long as they kill the pathogens, the microbes, it's legal. So basically, they're going to take these animals and they're going to cook them at very high temperatures, and that's called rendering. Well, first of all, yes, you're killing the pathogens, but you're also killing everything else in there too. Any potential nutrition, whether it's organ meats or whatever, like it's just wiping that out. And it's really bad because there's no oversight on what type of animals arrive in this dog meal and where they came from. So that's the protein source. Number 3, soybean meal. First of all, a dog is never meant to consume soybeans, okay? And it's not just fermented soybeans that you would get from a Japanese restaurant. You're getting a highly processed GMO, has been through hexane, which is a solvent, a chemical that's in gasoline. They have to use that to extract the protein. So you end up getting this highly refined, very incomplete protein. And certain phytonutrients in soy can affect the thyroid. It can affect testosterone. If your dog is pregnant, that can affect the offspring to a certain degree. And then number 4, animal fat. That sounds pretty okay. for an animal, right? You can, animal fat, dogs will love that. But when you actually read on the label, it'll say animal fat and then parentheses, a source of omega-6 fatty acids. I'm like, wait a second, that's a red flag. Animal fat is mostly saturated fat. The fact that they emphasize it was very strange to me. So I looked it up and this is what I found. Legally, they can also stick in with the animal fat, wherever that came from, seed oils. Not from this cold expeller pressed organic seed oils. I'm talking about the seed oils that have been highly oxidized from restaurants that they recycle, that they end up putting in the pet food, feeding agricultural animals as well. That's going to give you a highly oxidized fat that, from my viewpoint, is like carcinogenic because that is going to destroy the mitochondria and the different cellular structures. We have hidden seed oils in the animal fat. Of course, those seed oils are also GMO, so we have glyphosate. You got a lot of bad stuff in there, and then they have to preserve it with something called BHA or BHT. Well, these also are known carcinogens, and they're banned in Europe, but they're okay to sell in the US. I mean, just look at some of the things that can trigger cancer. Aflatoxin, glyphosate, BHA, BHT, oxidized seed oils, hexane over here. Let's go to number 5, corn gluten meal. Wow, that sounds pretty good. Like corn, gluten, well, gluten might be a problem, but well, guess what? This corn gluten meal has no gluten in it. This is the byproduct when they make ethanol and grain products. It's very, very cheap. It has a certain protein in corn called zein, which is extremely poor absorbing, very incomplete. Be lucky if you get any actual protein from that at all. But this is another cheap filler, a byproduct that they just end up sticking in this dog food. The next one, number 6, chicken byproduct meal. What's in that? Well, that would be the 4 Ds: dead, dying, diseased, or disabled. They grind up the bones, the carcass, the organs. I'm not sure if they put the feathers in there or not, but they just grind everything in there and that becomes the dog food. What about if that chicken has antibiotics? Well, it could be in there as well because they do use antibiotics a lot with chickens. Number 7, red 40, yellow 6, blue 2. First of all, why are they putting food coloring in the dog food? Is it for the dog? It's like dog food is like brown, right? But sometimes it's like different colors, so it makes it look like there's vegetables or this and there. It's just food coloring. We don't need to put food coloring in dog food. And that's going to come with a package because we know, at least in humans, it creates a lot of problems neurologically. But also, there's been some data that shows it can actually trigger tumor formation. Number 8, animal digest. Wow, what is that? That is slaughterhouse waste. More carcasses. It's kind of like more leftovers. They're trying to figure what to do with it. Let's just send it to the dog food industry. Number 9, wheat middlings. What's that? It's the waste product from the wheat industry. Is it nutrient dense? Probably not. Also, there's another added ingredient that's banned in Europe, but of course it's legal in the US, ethoxyquin, which has been known to trigger cancer. So sometimes they'll put that in there. Also, when they cook a lot of this carbohydrate in high temperatures, that can form acrylamide. And I've done videos on that. That's another thing that can trigger cancer and other problems, especially for the liver. When your dog starts getting fat, they start having dental problems. They start developing arthritis. They start getting cataracts, mood issues, blood sugar issues, diabetes. Look to the food because that's where it's really coming from. So I'm not going to show labels and everything, but you could actually see in this dog food, it looks, wow, look at that steak and the peas and the carrot in the background. Looks like a wonderfully healthy meal for your animal until we get down to these ingredients right here, right? So you have the ground whole grain, corn, meat and bone meal, soy meal, animal fat, source of omega-6 fatty acids, preserved with BHA and citric acid, corn gluten meal, natural flavors, dry plain beet pulp, which, you know, it sounds like, wow, that's healthy fiber, right? But you're actually getting a product that's GMO, so it comes with glyphosate. And then you have the chicken byproduct meal right there.
And then brewer's
Rice, which is the byproduct from the rice industry. Calcium carbonate, limestone, and then a bunch of synthetic vitamins. Now, I don't want to actually get into certain brands I'm recommending, but you just want to start studying the label. But definitely you want to have something without added meat byproducts, wheat or corn, artificial preservatives or colorings, right? Like here's a good one right here. Whitefish herring meal, whitefish meal, source of glucosamine with chondroitin sulfate. Okay, peas, lentil, that's fine. I'm not crazy about the canola oil. Dried ground potatoes, okay, fine. Dried plain beet pulp, flaxseed, salmon meal, that's much better than the soybean meal. Pea fiber, okay. Natural flavor, dried chicory root. All right, so now you know about what's really in pet food. The next most important thing to know is the worst possible ingredient in human foods. And for that information, you should watch this video right here.